If you're subscribed to my newsletter at MikeHuckabee.com, you may remember when I said that if Biden were elected, he'd essentially be bringing back the old Obama machine to the White House. Well, I'd like to thank Raymond Arroyo for pointing out something subtle yet significant. Former President Obama and presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden got together to record a little conversation this week, and the Biden campaign has even released a trailer. The campaign made quite a production out of it, with cameras following the two men as they exit their cars with entourages in tow, even timing their entrances from the elevators. Well, Raymond Arroyo points out one moment in this trailer in which President Obama reveals maybe a little more than he intended. And he says this: "You're going to be able to reassemble the kind of government that cares about people and brings people together." Okay, reassemble? Now, can you imagine the old gang of Susan Rice, Eric Holder, and John Kerry getting back together? Of course, there are a lot more than just them. Quite a few of them are probably still at the FBI. Whether or not Michelle Obama ends up being Biden's running mate, as some suspect will happen, it's easy to see that the same old liberal machine will be back if he wins. They'll probably be singing, "Hail, hail, the gang's all here." And does anyone think Joe Biden would be willing and able to stop the lawlessness in blue cities around the country? No, I think the only way he'd be able to quell the protests would be able to give those thugs everything they demand. And don't think for a moment that if you ever surrender to bullies, they stop being bullies. They've got a long list of reforms that would end America as we know it, and Biden would just do it all. I kind of like what Representative Doug Collins of Georgia said about Biden, that he is the, quote, leader of lawlessness, end quote. Doug Collins, who is now running for the U.S. Senate, praised President Trump for working to restore law and order when that's exactly what our country desperately needs. Matthew Boyle had a message for those who care about law and order. He said this: "I'm calling out to all the listeners of Breitbart Radio tonight. Do not think for 1 second the conservative voice in America needs to be complacent in this country. If you don't like what's going on in these cities, if you don't like lawlessness, if you don't like the liberal takeover of your rights and freedoms, your guns or anything else, then you got to do more than simply just talk about it." Well, Matthew Boyle is right. We got to fight for what matters, and that includes having a bigger conversation about the fact that Joe Biden, in his basement in Delaware, has been subscribing to the ultra-leftist positions of defunding the police and disrespecting the police. He's caved to leftist groups. Nothing less than a common-sense conservative movement will stop this nonsense. It's important to quantify the sort of ideologues that we're dealing with here, the sort of ideologues that Biden is bowing to. Here are just a few of the ideas these woke prosecutors in the Seattle area, which is King County, Washington, would love to see considered. First, to not necessarily file third-degree assault charges against someone who attacks a police officer. Oh yeah, just let him go ahead and beat up a cop. Also, not to file third-degree assault charges against someone who attacks a police officer if the officer didn't have his body cam turned on or didn't have proper training in de-escalation and, quote, implicit bias, end quote, whatever in the world that's supposed to mean. They also recommend that prosecutors not file charges on referrals for things like escape, eluding arrest, drug possession with intent to deliver, delivery of controlled substance, second-degree burglary and auto theft, and as long as the suspect has remained crime-free from when the case was referred to the present. I wish I could say I was making this stuff up, but it's real. All of those crimes would essentially go unpunished, as in, go and sin no more. The prosecutor who brought this letter to the attention of Fox 13, and who understandably didn't want to be identified, was disheartened. As they said, "I don't even know why we're prosecutors anymore. It seems almost as if the prosecutor's office becomes less and less relevant and even necessary to a safe society when we're willing to let burglars or robbers go free or have a license to assault police officers. This letter isn't the only thing that is a starting point for long-term, quote, reform of law enforcement in Seattle. Tuesday, an internal memo from the Department of the Department of Adult and Juvenile Detention outlined their plan to end all juvenile detention by 2025 and to close the King County Jail in downtown Seattle once the pandemic is under control. Did you hear that? Close the jail. Does anybody think Joe Biden, as a president, or whoever his chosen successor might be, would do anything to preserve law and order in an environment such as this? Joe Biden has already said he definitely would redirect funds away from the police. There's no question that he would support redirecting their duties as well. This would be a hopeless situation for law enforcement. So, what do we need to do this November? Well, maybe redirect the power away from leftists and back towards law enforcement. Hey, if you enjoyed that video, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. And why don't you leave a like and share this video while you're at it? If you want more of my news analysis and commentary, I hope you'll subscribe to my absolutely free twice-daily newsletter at MikeHuckabee.com. That's it for this edition of The Breakdown. I'm Mike Huckabee.